Hey, what's going on, guys? Dan here with Spilling the Tea Pico Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me in 2023 as we start to roll out and unpackage really what is going on in the market. So today I was joined by Kaitlin Zimmer. Kaitlin is a realtor in the KW region with the Tony Johal team. So she joined me. We talked about her jump into real estate, how she got into it, her entrepreneurship, and then her thoughts on where the market is going and what you can do to better prepare yourself if you're considering to buy or sell this spring. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it. Grab a tea, pull up a seat, and we'll catch you on the next one. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Spilling the Tea, brought to you by Pico Mortgages. This is a podcast where we look to interview movers, shakers, hustlers, people that are inspiring, have inspiring stories, and help to push the envelope on what's possible. I am your host, Daniel Johannes, and I'm a mortgage broker, but I'm also a business owner. I've created multiple startups, including a graffiti removal business. I've done loose leaf tea, I've done kombucha, juice bars, you name it. So I've got some experience in this, and I'm looking forward to these conversations that I have. If you like it, please comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Spilling the Tea Pico podcast. I'm your host, Dan Johannes. And today I am joined by Kaitlin Zimmer. Kaitlin is a realtor extraordinaire. She's with Tony Johal's team out in Kitchener-Waterloo, and she's been part of the team since May of last year. So Kaitlin comes to us with a background in entrepreneurship. She started some other companies before that. And, you know, Kaitlin, we had this conversation a little while ago, and I'm glad to have you back. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties on it, but it's always great speaking to you. So thank you again for joining us.
Amazing. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to try take two on this. That'll
Take
work this
two, you got it.
time.
Awesome. So let's jump back into it because you had some really interesting insight and you had a good story on how you got into real estate. So maybe you can take us back into sort of like the catalyst in your journey and how you got here today.
Yeah, so I right out of high school, I went right into college. I'm like, I got to do something. Okay, so I started at Conestoga College. I did human resort. No, yeah. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what it actually
That's
was, but
okay. It's funny because like years ago when I was in university too, someone had asked me that. They're like, what did you major in? I'm like, I don't know. There's so many courses you take. I'd like to say I majored in art because I love art, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't what I majored in. So you went to Conestoga College. You finished there, or did you transfer somewhere else?
So I did two programs in Conestoga College. I finished one of them, which I'm drawing the blank on the name of it.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was halfway through the business marketing, and the Conestoga College went on strike, and I was like, I can't, I'm not doing
Mm,
this. So
yeah.
I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't for me. So then I'm like, okay, I got to do something. I can't just freeload it. I'm gonna work. So I got a 9 to 5 job at a trucking company, which is not at all my spot, and that brought pure misery to my life. And I know that a lot of people work 9 to 5s and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not
Mm,
for me.
yeah.
So I was working at 9 to 5, hated it. I was like, you know what? No, I need to do something else. So that's when I kind of I've always been a little entrepreneurial. So I was like, you know what? Let's just go out a whim. Let's try out lash extensions. So I had my own business. It was going good. Just like most businesses, they start slow. It was booming, booming, booming. I'm like, oh my God, this lifestyle of just having my own work, like 9 to 5, but doing something I
Mm,
genuinely enjoy, but kind of being my own boss. I was like, I like this, but what else could I do that's similar to this kind of lifestyle? So
mm,
then I started brainstorming. I'm like, you know what? Real estate, let's just try it. So I got into the program. I think I'm the only person that says this, but COVID helped me a lot.
mm,
There was a lot of spare time in COVID. So I finished it up during COVID and I utilized my time of accordingly and I finished it. So I went into real estate. I was at another company for about 8 months. Then I switched over to Tony's team and you know what? It's just amazing. This lifestyle is when I say this lifestyle, I mean I get to be my own boss and I'm
mm.
responsible for own outcomes. And that's why I say this lifestyle, because I like being held accountable for me.
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head there too. Like it's the accountability is key, and being able to get up in the morning and do something that you're genuinely interested and excited to do. And I get you with the whole like having that entrepreneurial bug and being like, okay, well, the 9 to 5 isn't for me. I don't mind putting in the 9 to 5, but I need a why, and need a stronger why in order to get up in the morning and feel excited about it. So I'm glad you're able to find that in real estate. And it seems like, it's a great fit for you too. The Tony Johal team, they obviously, you can't go anywhere in Kitchener Waterloo without seeing Tony or the team up on a billboard or somewhere else. So it's pretty fantastic. Maybe you can speak a little bit about the team too, and why you feel it's a good fit to be part of their team.
Yeah, so I knew, like, I'm driving down the road and I see Tony looking at me and I'm like, I gotta go see him. Like when I was switching
Little
brokerage.
glint in his eye. He's like, "Hey, Caitlin, hey, call me."
He's an amazing
Yeah.
human. Everybody on this team is just so amazing, but I didn't know that. So I was like, you know what? There's a reason I'm seeing this guy everywhere. Let's go check it out. I just went
Mhm.
on a whim. Something had to change because I wasn't doing so well where I was before. Well, I just had to apply myself and think about it. Okay, what can I do? So I woke up one morning and I was like, this is changing today. I went to the office and I heard a bug in my ear, like past references that would Tony would be a great team to be on. So, anyways, I went and I'm like, I want to speak to Tony. Like not demanding, but like, hey, can I speak to Tony?
Showed up.
And
You didn't have a meeting booked.
nope,
You just like showed up there.
I did. I
That's
really did.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
yeah,
that you gotta show the initiative, and, like,
yeah.
that's really kinda what distinguished me from anybody else, because I didn't have the appointment, I had no idea who I was asking for, but I knew that I needed to be there, so I went in, I spoke to the right people, the team coordinator, and, I just pled my case, like, "Look, I'm a hard worker, I will prove myself. I'm I'm new to this industry, but I will make this work." And
Mhm.
she didn't call me back, and I'm like, "Oh my god, no, no, no." So then I called her a few days after. I'm like, "Hey, I haven't heard from you." And she goes, "You know what? I was actually going to call you tomorrow. I'm really glad that you called me right now because it shows me that you want this. You're in." And I screamed. I was so happy
Nice.
just to hear back from, or just to get this opportunity. And ever since joining, it's like it's a team. Like it's a family. Like it's a team family. Everybody I love near and dear. I love them so much. They are such great support systems. Even Tony himself, as busy as he can be, he's so supportive. He'll text you back. He'll call you anytime you need me or him. And it's a wonderful team to be a part of. So I'm really happy that I just went out at a whim and just did it.
Yeah, that's great. And it's good to surround yourself with people that are like-minded and can, support each other, right? Because when you kind of have that accountability, it's like anything. You go to I was on vacation visiting a good friend of mine earlier this month, and his whole thing is, he's got a nice gym set up at his house, and knocking on the door 9:30 in the morning. Dan, get your butt out of bed. We're going to do and it having an accountability partner really helps out in those type of things when you're able to rely or have a team and have someone on the phone where you're like, hey, I need to pass this by you, or I'm not sure what I should do in this situation. Or even, I say this all the time. When I started out mortgage brokering, I didn't have all the answers. I still don't. And having a team or friends within the industry that you're able to rely on, it doesn't show weakness when you're talking to clients, right? If you have that ability to say, you know what, that's a great question. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to get it for you. It shows initiative, kind of like you walking in and saying, hey, I think this team's for me, and I'm not going to take no for an answer. So you did mention, so Tony's team's got a lot of support built around sort of the group there. And then just off camera, we were talking a little bit about some of the extracurricular stuff. You guys were down in Miami enjoying the sun and sand, and then also doing some stuff related to sales training. So how much of that would you say factors in when you're dealing with clients, so potential buyers, sellers that are looking to put their place in the market? What would you say, like, are these sort of things that translate really well into helping your clients?
Absolutely. So we really have structured our team with some of the greatest people in this industry. And we all learned these skills together down at this conference in Fort Lauderdale, but our time was in Miami. Um,
Mm,
and there's so much knowledge and just skills and lingo that we've used that benefit not only us, but for the buyer and the sellers to understand more where we're coming from as well. Now, going forward, we have weekly meetings within our team, and a lot of our meetings are structured around content that we learned
mm,
in Fort Lauderdale. So it's a huge play into it, and it doesn't only help us as a team excel, but it helps people we're working with really have a good understanding as to what we're doing, because a lot of the times it can be their first transaction. It can be 10 years since they've done a transaction like this. So it's really important to have who you're dealing with truly thoroughly understand why you're doing what you're doing and when it happens and the process and everything. So yeah, it's the content that the knowledge that we learned within those 3 days of that conference is a lifetime knowledge.
mm. Yeah, and that's so important too. And you mentioned this, like first time home buyers, but then people that haven't bought or sold in a long time are considering making that move. I mean, the market's changed so much, the rules have changed so much. There's the process in doing everything, even from like you said back in COVID, that was your catalyst to get into this and focus and hunker down and just kind of get this done. For a lot of people, since COVID, the entire process has changed on buying and selling. We know just from lawyers dealing with lawyers, they can now do signings and closings virtually, right?
Yeah.
So before you had to go into an office. So there's a lot of changes that you definitely have to cascade and explain to these buyers and sellers out there. And it's great that you're able to do these events where you come back with a whole bunch of knowledge and you're able to apply it and share it with your clients. Because I think in this, like as we get into 2023, it's a whole different market than last year was, right? Like, and being able to differentiate yourself and just create that value for your clients is so important. So maybe we can speak a little bit about that, because 2023, we're almost into February now. What are you noticing is different this year versus last year, maybe with the market?
um
Where do we
the
start, right?
experience. Yeah, the experiences that the people who did sell and buy in the hot months, the repercussions of what they're facing, and the buyer's remorse that they're facing, and
Mm,
the bad experiences that they are now recognizing that they had during that crazy market. So now what essentially our agents are trying to do is damage control.
mm,
And this damage control it's hard because it's emotional, it's financial, it's you're trying to prove yourself, because I'm not that agent that you dealt with in the heat of the COVID
yeah,
craziness.
yeah.
We hold ourselves to a much higher standard, and it's not like that. So we really just have to really prove ourselves and act upon that as well, because words are just words. You have to put those into actions, right?
Hmm, hmm.
So
The
it's
Yeah, it's the market from last year versus this year. It's been giving a lot of us a lot of comparisons to draw, right? And the number one thing is, did people overpay for houses, and is the market going to collapse, or are we going to see a larger correction that we've seen already? And I'm on my TikTok channel, for example, the amount of people that mention it or send me things that are related to price decreases. We see that, for example, I did one a little while ago on House Sigma, and just the difference in, last year someone bought a house for 1.8 million and just sold again for 1.1. And the question is, well, is this going to be a trend that continues, or is this sort of a circumstance that was just a little bit beyond what most people, typically buyers and sellers, were experiencing and are experiencing today? Because I think for the most part, and this is my personal opinion on it, someone that bought for 1.8 million, unless you are highly leveraged or you're a speculative buyer, there's no reason why you need to sell it, even with interest rates higher than they were last year for 1.1. It just didn't make any sense. But you see a lot of that, right? And then you have these questions from people that are on the sidelines or considering buying, and very concerned that maybe the market's going to correct even further, or yeah, that buyer's remorse from buying last year and thinking maybe I should get out or whatnot. Um, what are your thoughts, Kaitlin, on interest rates? So last week we had the Bank of Canada come together. They made an announcement. It was the eighth consecutive increase. So we had seven last year, one again, and that pushed up our prime rate, which affects all variable rate mortgages. Anyone that's going to a home equity line of credit, it also affects. So this is something that's very real, and it has an impact not only on buyers. Affordability or their ability to borrow for a mortgage, but it also affects their cash flow. So, is this maybe part of a trend that's going to continue? I know you're not, you don't have a crystal ball, but what are your thoughts on how this is going to play into the market, and what are you seeing? What are buyers and potential sellers saying right now on these interest rate hikes?
So the rates were increased by the Bank of Canada to kind of combat inflation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we we're kind of we're there. I think that I attended a RBC um, economist meeting, I suppose what it was, but it was very informative, and they were telling me how they're pretty good. They're really good at predicting, kind of the future, not crystal ball wise, but kind of predicting where we're at inflation wise. And there was a lot of yeses, yes, 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 of
Mm.
things to expect for inflation. Those yeses have now decreased. So that means that the Bank of Canada, by increasing these interest rates, they're kind of creating this balanced market for real estate, and they're kind of combating and doing an actual good job at combating this inflation. I think that there's going to be one more increase in the interest rates of another 0.25, but I think that's going to be it. Now we're going into the spring market, and it's always a hot market. Historically, actually, December was transactional wise the least transacted month in of all times. But there's a lot of
Mm.
factors that go into that too. Holidays, time of year to
Right.
move, interest rates were crazy. Nobody knew what was going on. At the end of the day, people still need to buy. Still, people need to sell. There's still desires to be had within first-time home buyers. There's still money out there, but the thing is, with the interest rates going so high, the house prices go lower, and vice versa. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what's happening right now, and you're paying less, and then you can just refinance and remortgage it 5 years down the road when possibly the interest rates are lower. So you're
Right.
paying less, but would you rather pay for a house at 1.2 million, let's say, at a 2% interest rate, or would you rather keep the equity within your home and then buy the home at 700,000 with a 5% interest rate?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, you're not taking out a larger loan. You're not having to pay more interest on it. Although the interest rate's higher, effectively you're paying less or comparable amount for the same house. I actually just did the comparison. Got into a little TikTok beef with someone that was saying, "Hey, yeah, it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole with people that the trolls come out." So I was having some fun with it, but I ran the numbers because they were like, "No, this isn't right." There was a house that maybe it was the same house I posted where I sold last year, or was bought last year, and then it was sold and bought again, not even 12 months later for a much lower price. But we kind of look at the difference. We say, okay, back then, what was the prevailing rate then? What's the rate today? But you're paying a lot less for the same house, so obviously you're borrowing less, and that payment works out to be the same or lower. So that's not a bad thing either if you're able to get into a house for a lot less money. Totally worth it, I think, in my opinion. So we talked a little bit about this, Kaitlin, off camera, that the days on market in KW is fairly low. Think I'd seen a report that listed sort of the top 10, or maybe I put it on my TikTok, I can't remember, but it was like a top 10 report of the um, fastest and the slowest markets for real estate to move, and KW was at the top at like 20 or 25 days or something like that. You might have more accurate data than I do, but why do you think that's happening? And do you think this is a trend that can continue into the spring market?
Yeah, definitely. So, definitely within KW, houses sell really quick. When I say really quick, though, I'm saying about 21 to 23 days, around there. And that's
Oh, wow. Okay.
because Yeah, that's because the house has to be priced accordingly. But those are the detached, the completely detached houses, you know, regular family homes. When you're moving up into the luxury and you're in the 1 millions, they do sit on the market a little bit longer because those types of houses do require a certain buyer.
Right.
But apart from that, there's millions of houses around here, and they're they get scooped up right away. So um, it's a growing community, and there's constant growth, constant jobs with people being able to work from home. That's why houses are growing so fast, because we're
Hmm.
growing, and KW is the next new spot. So um, that's why it's selling so quick. So you have to get your realtor in the door as soon as possible, because you don't know how long that's going to be on the market. Yes, there is the odd home that is on the date and on the market for a little bit longer, and that's usually because something's crazy with the house or it's way too overpriced. And
Right. Right.
when you see the oddball out there. But to tell you the truth, like going into the spring market, we're going to see a lot of holding offers. We're going to see a lot of bidding wars. We're already starting to see them. It's
Mm.
wild. Let me tell you about this one house. So it was up in Waterloo, and it was, I forget the price of it. It was quite low. And it was strategically that way because it was a really horrible house. Like it needed to be stripped down and just completely rebuilt. Anyways, it's a good plot of land in Waterloo. It had 69 offers on it.
What?
69
69 registered offers.
registered offers. This was actually while we were in Miami. So that was between the dates of January 8th to January 11th. So that was
Wow.
the house. And it's because it was a great opportunity. And
Right. Yeah.
it really was its prime location. It was beautiful location of all the other houses around it. And that's why we're saying, you know, the spring market's going to hit. It always hits. It's always been a hot season. There were 69 offers on this house. So you're telling me out of that one person who got that house, those other 68 offers don't want a house anymore? There's
Yeah.
still people
Yeah.
who
That's
want.
exactly it, because they're still out there. They're looking, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I've heard this from other realtors in other markets too, that they're starting to see multiple offers coming back on properties. And, again, I think the TikTok trolls, maybe it's the same troll, but they had commented, well, it's part of that is because they're just priced too low now. So they're trying to elicit a bidding war on it. But I don't think that's the case. I think now there's been enough time that's passed that we're starting to price things accordingly to the market and what the market dictates. It just seems like there's more people coming out there. And Kitchener is pretty popular on the map right now for, they're called ADUs, so accessory dwelling units. This is additional, you've probably heard of it, additional properties that could be built on someone's primary residence, and you can use it to rent out or for family members or put your in-laws in there. It's an opportunity for people to, one, it helps with affordable housing and the inventory issues, but then two, it helps as like a mortgage helper on it. Have you come across any of those buyers or anyone interested in that type of stuff yet? Or
Well, personally, my family thought about it.
no?
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't up in the air. Like we were just kind of joking about it. Just throw my parents in the shed and call it a day.
Yeah.
Not actually, but there are a lot of the buyers. So the houses that are selling super quick, personally, because of the buyers that I have and I'm working with, they want the properties that they can have a separate dwelling in the basement.
Mm,
So that's going very quick. Now I can only imagine that there's going to be these ADUs in the back in no time, because
yeah.
these houses can go upwards. You get the right permits and you're golden. So I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
sure we'll start to see it as the population just keeps increasing and developing around here. Just it's a good use of space. I mean, I haven't seen any or dealt with it personally, but I'm not surprised because of our population increasing like this.
Hmm. And it's interesting because I spoke to a reporter on Friday, and she she was doing a story on affordable housing and sort of the immigration policy across Canada. And that's one of the things. So we have a strong immigration policy. We have certain targets we're supposed to achieve as far as taking in skilled workers into this country, but everyone needs a place to stay. right? And typically for most immigrants, they move into a community, they rent, and then they sort of transition or segue into buying. That's like sort of traditionally been how it's been run. So we have a lot of pressure on municipalities to go ahead and provide this affordable housing for these immigrants that are coming here over the next X amount of years. And that's likely going to present some pressure on buying as well too. Um, what what I've noticed too is that with a lot of these first-time home buyer or non-resident programs that they have out there, a lot of people are starting to inquire about it even before they come to the country. What's your thought as far as this area, Kitchener-Waterloo, maybe even Cambridge? Do you think it's set up to support that type of influx? Do you think we have enough inventory here? And what are you seeing as far as new residents coming into this market? And maybe we can even talk a little bit about rent, because rent is absolutely bonkers. It's through the roof. And do you think this is going to have a negative impact um, on rent? So I threw a lot of questions at you, Kaitlin. So you can answer any of those ones.
Sure. No problem. So, in terms of KW being able to actually hold all immigrants and who are coming here, I there's not enough inventory. Like, yes, we're
Mm,
in a balanced market, but at the same time, look what happened in COVID. The houses were swept up like nothing. I think
yeah.
we're going to have to do a lot of developing, and we're going to have to build outwards. And I
Mm,
don't know whether that means going into Brantford, going into, the more country
sort of
areas.
rural. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
How about building up? Is does a lot of that happen? Like moving from downtown Toronto, obviously, a lot of vertical communities going up there. They really focus on density. Maybe you can speak about that a little bit here in KW. Is that vertical sort of communities? Is that supported, or do we get a lot of pushback here from people not wanting high rises or condominiums put up?
I think that high rises, like, personally, I hear a lot of good things about high rises.
Mm,
And I'm talking when we're building upwards. I've recently been in a lot of townhouses, and it's
mm,
quite strange, the layout. It's the doors are right next to each other. One will go directly up, one will go down, so you kind of have 2
I've
apartments.
seen those. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and yes, I know there's also the apartment buildings, the big condos in downtown Kitchener and such, but I think that the townhouses, if they're going to develop around here, we're gonna be seeing a lot more of those because ever since there's been a few like 2018 and up I've been into, and they're all kind of this design where there's space upwards and there's also it's smaller living quarters, but you can have at least a family in there. And then same
Right.
going downwards as well, and there's rows of them, and that's kind of how I think we're going to be able to house these people and have, comfortable ish living spaces.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're right. Like the municipalities, there's a lot of pressure on them to actually provide affordable housing and enough inventory. I think CMHC, the goal of the what does the Ford government put forward that affordable housing initiative, and basically it's like, look, this year we have to achieve 465,000 new builds in order to support sort of the targets to 20, I don't know if it's 2030 or something, and then 485,000, then over 500,000, when historically we've never hit over 400,000 builds. So, a lot of the pressure has been put on the municipal level to say, look, you guys got to figure this out. And I think you're right. That's probably one of the solutions we got to look at, is being able to build sort of vertical communities in order to achieve those targets. But until sort of the bureaucratic red tape, I think on sort of the city level is kind of taking care of it, it's definitely a restraint, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of achieve these goals. So, and then we also have lumber costs. Well, actually, lumber's come down a little bit, but the overall building costs have gone up. So it's become a little bit of a challenge too, to kind of keep things affordable. Maybe you can talk a little bit about pre-construction, because I don't know if you do too much pre-construction. What are your thoughts on pre-construction? Stay away from it right now, or could it be a possibly a good deal?
It's definitely like with the hike of everything else, it's definitely hard to get into pre-con
Mm,
because it's so fast and scooped up, and there's a lot of realtors with their feet in it already. So
Right.
um,
Yeah.
you gotta be like, you gotta be camping out there before the door opens, or else you're not gonna get in. I don't do a lot of pre-con, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I There's a lots of people on my team that do specialize in that, and any questions, I just go right to them.
That's a
Um,
good, yeah, good way to look at it. I've heard too that pre-con, like I used to do a bunch of it like way back just at a university. And it was really interesting to me because the price that they would put for pre-construction was typically today's price or at a discount. Now you're seeing prices, okay, we're going to build this thing, is going to be ready in 2027, 2030, but the pricing it at what they expect the market to be at in 2027, you're actually paying a premium. And there's so much risk involved that I do hear a lot of people say, hey, look, um, we're not going to do pre-construction anymore. They're looking at getting properties that are on the resale market. So, but it's good to know that you've got people on your team that specialize in it too, because that's exactly it. You have to look at sort of like the opportunities out there and say, well, what's a good one? What's a bad one? Who's a good developer? Who's, cutting corners and so forth. So that's interesting. And maybe we finish this conversation again. We'll circle back on rents. What do you think's going on with rent? And do you think rents are going to continue to go up? Anyone that's currently renting, is this maybe a good time to consider buying?
It's okay. So if you're paying rent, you're paying 100% interest. So I mean, it's always a good time if you can talk to your mortgage broker and figure it out with your mortgage broker. If you're able to make it work with your income, then buying is always a better idea in my opinion, rather than paying rent. I also know that there's different scenarios in people's lives where they can't necessarily buy, but you're not paying 100% interest when you are paying your
Mm-hmm.
mortgage. So that's just my opinion on it. But rent right now, I really do think that it has a good reflection about inflation. And the landlords of that property that you're paying rent for, they're also going through inflation as well. They have bills to pay, they have mortgages to pay, they have families to feed. So I think that's definitely why we're seeing the rents going up and up and up. I think that it goes very hand in hand with how our market's going and what's happening and how their lives are also affected, because it's all like a domino effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
definitely.
I
Yeah, I think you're right about that. There's definitely a domino effect with this, and to pay 100% of your rental income going towards someone else, paying off and creating an asset. If you have the opportunity, at least explore it. It's worth it to see if you can figure out a plan. So I'm going to check back with you, Kaitlin, because I do really enjoy our conversations on this. And I think we need to check back a little bit later on this year, see how your predictions unfolded and where the market is, and then maybe where it's going to sort of end up. Because I know you're right. A lot of the sentiment with the market, from what I'm reading too, is that we're likely going to see possibly another rate increase, but we could be at sort of like that turning point where rates start to come down. We're seeing it with fixed rate mortgages right now that are tied to the bond yield. But, is this the end of it? Is it going to continue? We don't know. We don't know what the spring market's going to bring too. So let's circle back. We'll get your crystal ball out again. And Kaitlin, thank you so much for joining us. For anyone that's listening to this or watching it, guys, I'll put her contact information below so you can reach out to Kaitlin if you're considering investing or buying or moving to KW. Even I'm sure renting, you'd be happy to answer some of those questions on good areas, bad areas, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, thank you again, Kaitlin, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure as always. And please feel free to reach out to me, anybody listening, and I'd be happy to help you.
Awesome. Thank you. You have a good one.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.